I'm Madison Taylor. On the morning of my 33rd birthday, I walked into the office at 7 a.m. to find nothing on my desk except a misprinted document and a curt note from my mother. Urgently prep files for the Coastal Azure deal. No birthday wishes. No cake. Meanwhile, my younger brother Ethan was being celebrated with fireworks, a 3-tiered cake and a luxury car gift, paid for through the budget I approved. Standing in that room full of applause that wasn't for me, I looked around and wondered, how can someone give so much and still be treated like they're invisible? Have you ever felt like your own family saw right through you? If you've ever lived that feeling, share it in the comments below. Hit like if it resonates with you, and don't forget to subscribe to the channel to follow the rest of this story. When I chose to walk away and arrive at the very place my family was trying to buy, completely unaware I had gotten there first. Since I was a child, I learned to step back. In our house, there was an unspoken rule. If Ethan needed something, Madison had to give it up. I still remember the night before my college entrance exam. I was studying late when my mom knocked. She didn't wait for me to answer. She pushed the door open, holding a bag of fast food. Your brother forgot to turn in his essay. Help him rewrite it. He's freaking out. I looked at the clock. 10:30 p.m. Mom, I have a test tomorrow. You're smarter. You'll manage. Your brother can't. I grabbed my laptop, swallowing the frustration. Ethan's essay got an A-. My math test the next day? I missed a full ride scholarship by a single point. No one brought it up at dinner the rest of that week. As the years went on, the logical division of roles became even more apparent. Ethan failed college admissions 3 times, yet our parents hired him private tutors, enrolled him in exclusive academies, and eventually, it was me again, called in to fix the financial report for his first startup, an app that shared community beverage coupons. It folded in 6 months. The initial funding came from my year-end bonus, borrowed without asking. When I confronted my mom, she said, "You don't need that much. You live simply. Give your brother a chance, he's just getting started." Every time Ethan failed, I was the one recalculating budgets, finding ways to cover the losses. Every time I met a target, closed a big deal, Mom would offer a brief nod. Good job. That's what you're supposed to do. I once ranked first in the state for corporate finance during college. No one in the family mentioned it. Meanwhile, Ethan merely made it to the interview stage of an internship program, and the whole family threw a celebration. I remember once asking Mom why she never hung my diploma in the living room, like she did with a childhood photo of Ethan receiving an art award in grade school. She replied, "If we hang that up, it makes everyone else feel small. You succeed at everything, but nobody likes someone who's too perfect." I'm not perfect. I'm just hardworking. But in my family, effort was never really seen. Only, who needs help, earned attention. Last year, Ethan's birthday fell on a Friday. I planned the whole thing. Ordered his favorite cake, dark chocolate with no frosting, hired someone to decorate the office overnight. Me. 1 week later, on my own birthday, I opened my inbox to find a single auto-generated email from H. "Happy birthday, Madison." No flowers. No cake. No greetings from anyone on the team. Ethan even borrowed my car that day to attend a tech expo. Didn't say a word. April. My assistant and the only person in the company who actually saw me, brought me a coffee with a sticky note. "Dinner tonight?" I remembered today matters. That one word, matters, nearly made me cry. In an entire world that ran on deadlines and transactions, she was the only one who remembered I was a person with a birthday. Everyone else, they saw me as a precise financial system that needed no maintenance. I used to wonder if I was too sensitive. If I expected too much from something as simple as a birthday wish. If maybe, in every family, someone has to fade into the background so others can shine. But that feeling, that constant pull to step back, to be the one who holds it all together quietly, it gnawed at me every day. I once tried to talk to my father. Just once. He was watching business news on TV. I sat down beside him and asked softly, "Dad, do you ever think I might need recognition too?" He didn't look away from the screen. "Everyone knows you're good. Do you really need to be told?" I turned away, my throat tightening. That answer said more than any rejection could. I thought about all the holidays where I handled the gifts, the events, the budget planning for shareholder banquets. Everyone else dressed up, gave speeches, raised glasses, while I sat behind the scenes adjusting lighting, calculating costs, fixing last-minute glitches. I asked Mom about my role in the last gala. He said, "No one noticed you. That means it went well." And then, on the morning of my 33rd birthday, I stood there watching Ethan laugh beside his cake, listening to Mom proudly declare, "We're so proud of Ethan for working so hard," while the room exploded in applause. I pulled out my phone and opened my banking app. In the private savings account I'd been quietly building since my first year on the job, the number was finally enough for something I'd never dared. I opened a browser and typed the name of the resort my family was negotiating to buy. I'd already reviewed every legal document, partnership agreement, and the CEO's calendar. I knew every move my family was planning. What they didn't know was that I'd gotten there first. I booked a week in the resort's most exclusive villa, at the peak of the deal's negotiation timeline. I didn't say a word. I didn't make a scene. I simply closed my laptop, looked up at Ethan accepting the luxury car from Mom, and walked out of the office. No one noticed I was gone. And honestly, maybe that said it all. The plane descended slowly, golden sunlight pouring through the window, reflecting off turquoise water below. I leaned closer, spotting the row of villas perched just above the waves, each one separated like private islands in a sapphire sea. No familiar faces. No buzzing calls. No one asking about budgets, spreadsheets, or emergency meetings. Just the ocean, the wind, and me, finally in charge of my own decisions. I stepped out of the airport transfer wearing perfectly fitting sunglasses and a quiet smile. A well-dressed man waited on the wooden platform, extending his hand politely. "Miss Madison Lee, correct? I'm Reese Collins, General Manager of Coastal Azure. It's an honor to welcome you." His voice was low and professional. I shook his hand with a slight nod. "Thank you for the personal welcome. I'm looking forward to experiencing the resort firsthand before finalizing any investment decisions." Reese glanced toward the concierge and gave a quick signal. "We've prepared Villa 4 just as requested. Western exposure, full privacy, private beach access, and a personal butler on call 24 hours. If you need anything beyond that, just use our internal app or contact me directly." I smiled, my tone calm and assured. "I don't need anything more than peace and a little room to think." "You'll have all of that," Reese replied, then gestured toward the young man beside him. "Marcus will be assisting you throughout your stay." A tall young man in a crisp white shirt nodded politely. "It's a pleasure to serve you, Miss Madison. If you're ready, I'll take you to your villa." I nodded and rolled my suitcase forward. We walked between rows of palm trees, the salty breeze carrying hints of sunscreen and soft waves, like I was stepping into an entirely different world. No one called me Taylor. No one asked, "Where's Ethan?" No more glances judging my silence in boardrooms. Marcus opened the villa door. The room lit up automatically, warm golden lights falling across polished wooden floors. Every glass panel opened to the sea, vast, quiet, and finally mine. "This one has an automatic air filtration system, heated floors, and a natural mineral bath," Marcus said as he gently pulled back the curtains. "You also have a private pool and a slide straight into the ocean if you'd like to use it." I nodded with gratitude. Looks like everything's ready for a week with no schedule. After Marcus left, I pulled the tie from my hair, stepped out onto the balcony, and took a deep breath of salty ocean air. The sunlight bounced off the sea so brightly I had to squint. I made my way down the short wooden steps that led to the infinity pool, where the water stretched seamlessly into the distant ocean. I pulled out my phone and opened a secondary Instagram account followed only by April and a few trusted colleagues. I held the phone up and snapped a photo of my feet propped on the pool's edge, the crystal clear water below. Caption: "Off the grid for a bit. Don't call. Don't text." Almost instantly, April messaged me. "What is this? Where are you? That water's too blue. Wait, is that Coastal Azure?" I didn't reply. I just sent a swimmer emoji and a photo of the orange cocktail in my hand. Her next message popped up seconds later. "Oh my God. They have no idea, do they?" I smiled and leaned back into the lounge chair. No, they didn't. No one in my family suspected I'd actually step away, especially not during the exact week the company was finalizing the acquisition of this resort. They thought I was working remotely, handling logistics, like always. Just like all the times before, they forgot I wasn't the person who would always be there, silently fixing what they didn't even realize was broken. I opened my laptop not to check work emails, but to disable location tracking and disconnect my devices. I even changed my reservation account name to Madison Lee, a surname from my late grandmother, the one my mother could never stand. A name far enough to avoid recognition but close enough to feel like home. Outside, Marcus returned with a tray of fresh fruit. I brought you some chilled strawberries and mango. If you'd like the spa menu, I'll leave it here. I took the tray with a soft smile. Marcus, I have a small request. Of course. If anyone calls the resort asking for my name, tell them I'm not on the guest list. I understand, he nodded, not a flicker of hesitation. We take guest privacy very seriously. I stood and walked back inside, selecting a navy blue swimsuit. When I slid open the glass door and stepped back out onto the balcony, the afternoon light stretched long across the sea. I settled onto the chair and lifted my cocktail to eye level. I thought of Mom, of Ethan, of the morning meeting they were surely expecting me to join with the financial breakdown I had already encrypted, locked behind one password: my birth date. I opened Instagram again and posted another photo. My cocktail next to a book, the ocean behind it. Caption: when you stop waiting for someone to care about your birthday, any place can feel like home. I woke up to soft morning light, the sound of waves gently brushing the shore. The scent of sea salt drifted in through the cracked balcony door, laced with lemongrass from the spa next door. I stepped out with a cup of coffee Marcus had brought up. Just a few steps separated me from the edge of the infinity pool, where the water melted into the sky. A truly peaceful morning until the phone started buzzing. A call from Mom. I set the cup down and looked at the screen. I had been expecting this call, just not quite this early. I answered. Madison, she said, her voice as sharp and cold as always. Where are you? Hi, Mom, I replied softly. Do you know what day it is today? A short pause. Then she responded like she was talking to her assistant, not her daughter. It's Friday. The day we meet with the lawyers to finalize the Coastal Azure deal. I let out a quiet, joyless laugh. Exactly. It's Friday. Her voice rose. Don't play games. The resort's general manager refused to share the guest list with the company. Someone booked a top-tier villa under the name Madison Lee. Don't tell me that's you. Why would you think that? Because Ethan just reported that you've vanished without notice, no updates, no financial files sent. And because only you would come up with a stunt like this. A stunt. I raised an eyebrow, keeping my tone even. What do you call the 5 years I showed up at every negotiation? Responsibility? Or submission? Madison, this is not the time for emotions. You're jeopardizing a multi-million-dollar transaction. I glanced at the pool's surface, my reflection quiet and still. I'll send the full financial analysis. But not to you. Not to Ethan. To the person who actually has decision-making authority. What do you mean? I didn't answer that. I just gave her one final line before hanging up. I've scheduled a meeting with the Coastal Azure Executive Board. They're open to speaking with serious investors. You go ahead and handle the lawyers. I ended the call. There was no relief. No surge of victory. Just a familiar hollow in my chest. The kind that comes from stepping out of a role you were never truly seen in. I opened my laptop and typed a brief email to Reese Collins, attaching the financial analysis I'd been compiling quietly for months. An in-depth look at the chain's outstanding debts, market expansion potential on the East Coast, and most importantly, a sustainable investment proposal that broke away from Taylor Company's extractive model. Subject line: request for in-person meeting, strategic collaboration opportunity. Within minutes, Reese's assistant replied, Mr. Collins would be happy to meet you at 4 p.m. today in the executive lounge. Your time slot is confirmed. I leaned back into the chair, letting my body fully relax into the quiet air, while the storm on the other side of the ocean churned on. Around noon, the phone buzzed again. It was Ethan. I didn't pick up. The messages rolled in one after another. What the hell are you doing? Mom's losing her mind. She says you're sabotaging the entire family's future. Did you really quit? Where are you? I placed the phone face down. No response needed. They didn't need to know where I was. They just needed to start learning how to live without me solving their spreadsheets, their deadlines, and their crisis of the week, quietly, invisibly, for nearly a decade. Marcus knocked gently, holding the evening menu. I can have some herbal tea ready before your meeting. Or schedule a massage if you need to relax. Thank you, Marcus, I nodded. Just the ginger tea. And, silence all outside calls, please. Of course, he said with a small smile and left. I opened the wardrobe and chose a sea green silk dress, elegant but understated. I clipped on a pair of pearl earrings, the only birthday gift I'd ever bought for myself that no one could take away. When I looked at myself in the mirror, I didn't see the overworked finance director of a family-run company. I saw a woman learning how to exist without needing to be accepted. No recognition needed. Just a person who stopped asking for permission to live by her own values. I reviewed the investment files one last time and printed a hard copy inside a thin leather folder. When the clock struck 4 p.m., I stepped out of the villa, my heels tapping softly against the wooden path shaded by palm trees. The ocean stretched endlessly beside me, but I didn't feel like someone forgotten in a noisy world. I was someone stepping into the arena, not to clean up a mess but to present a proposal. Dinner was arranged in a private area behind the resort's main restaurant, a wide stone terrace framed with flowing white curtains that swayed in the sea breeze. The sun was setting along the horizon, casting streaks of coral and rose across the water. On the table, candlelight flickered against glasses of red wine, and the first course had already been served. Everything was intentional, elegant, and precise. Reese sat across from me, still composed, though his expression had shifted into something more serious. 2 others joined us. One was the resort's legal advisor and the other the executive director of investments. I appreciate your interest in the Coastal Azure chain, Reese began with a polite, professional smile. But as you may have heard, we already have preliminary agreements with Taylor Company. I gently set down my glass, pulled a neatly bound file from my handbag and slid it toward him. Mr. Collins, I think it's time I formally introduce who I am. He paused for a few seconds, then nodded. I'm listening. My real name is Madison Taylor. I'm the head of finance at Taylor Company, and the lead analyst overseeing risk in the very deal my family is currently negotiating with your side. Reese and the others exchanged quick glances. There wasn't shock, just a clear shift in the atmosphere. They understood things had just changed. Why the anonymity? The attorney asked, more analytical than accusatory. Because if I had arrived under the Taylor name, I never would have received an honest look at how this resort operates, or how your team truly engages with investors. I looked directly at Reese. I'm not representing my family in this meeting. I'm here as a minority shareholder of an independent private investment firm, Silver Dune Ventures. The legal advisor raised an eyebrow. That name came up during the closed bidding round for preferred shares. That's right, I nodded. We acquired 30% equity from a group of former investors who exited due to strategic differences. I'm the listed representative, and I hold full voting rights on that stake. Reese leaned back in his chair, fingers laced in front of him. So let me understand this clearly. You came here in secret not just to evaluate the deal, but to offer an alternative? I took a deep breath and met his gaze. I don't believe in the model Taylor Company is trying to implement. A copy-paste framework that forces every resort to operate identically. Coastal Azure has its own soul. From the service to the architecture to the internal culture. If Taylor Company takes over, it will all be standardized beyond recognition. I've been in rooms where my mother changed the tablecloths of a partner resort because they clashed with the brand aesthetic. I won't let that happen again. The investment director leaned forward. And you want us to partner with you instead of your family? I nodded. Not just a partnership. A reimagined growth strategy built on local nuance, personalized experiences, and sustainable investment. I've outlined specific proposals in the file: solar energy upgrades, wastewater system overhauls, and expansion into wellness retreat services, which are seeing rapid growth on the East Coast. Reese opened the file and flipped through a few pages. His expression changed. No longer polite. He understood. Why go against your own family? He asked gently. I paused for a moment. A breeze drifted through, making the candlelight on the table sway. I closed my eyes briefly, then opened them, speaking honestly. Because it's no longer a family. It's a machine fueled by neglect and control. They remember clients' names but not their daughter's birthday. They give me dresses that don't fit and meaningless gifts, because they assume I don't need anything. I've sat through too many meetings about family values while never being seen for my own. The entire table fell silent. Reese sat in thought for a long moment. Then he closed the file and placed it gently on the table. I don't like doing business with people who forget their own child's birthday, he said calmly but firmly. And I especially don't like deals that put profit above the soul of a place like this. He turned to the legal advisor. Cancel the contract signing with Taylor Company. I want a new meeting with Madison Taylor representing Silver Dune Ventures. I looked at him, feeling a surprising lightness in my chest, as if the weight I'd carried for years had finally been set down. For the first time in my life, I was being treated not as a background operator, but as a human being. The next morning, just after finishing yoga on the beachfront deck, Marcus approached holding a tablet. Miss Madison, the front desk wanted to inform you. A group of guests just arrived requesting to switch to the main villa wing. However, the entire section has already been booked out. I glanced at the screen. It was them, Mom, Ethan, and two familiar assistants. I picked up my coconut water and took a sip, nodding. Move them to the sister resort on the far side of the island. Tell the desk I personally requested the best rooms available. Marcus raised an eyebrow. Would you like the charges billed to your account? I smiled. Consider it a gift, for remembering I exist. He nodded and walked away. I turned back to the sea. The morning mist hadn't yet burned off, the sun still soft and gold, like a gentle reminder that everything really can begin again if you're willing to cut the old ties. My phone buzzed. It was April. I'm in the office and you'll want to hear this, she said quickly. Ethan's slamming desks and yelling because he can't access the financial files. He says the password was changed. I raised an eyebrow. It wasn't changed. I just re-encrypted the system and assigned a new one. What did you use? I smiled. Pi birthday. On the other end, April burst out laughing. You're evil. Not evil. Fair, I replied. Anyone who remembers it deserves access. An hour later, Mom called. I picked up. Madison, she snapped. Where are you? Why are the documents locked? Ethan can't prepare for the investor meeting this afternoon. I sat on the porch in a rattan chair, legs resting on the railing, the breeze cool in my hair. Have you tried entering the password? We don't have time for guessing games. Oh, I figured you had time for everything else. Last-minute flights. Hiring lawyers. Making a dozen phone calls. But somehow no one ever has time to remember their daughter's birthday. Mom went silent for a few seconds. Fine. What do you want? Set up a meeting. Over Zoom. I'll attend. But no one interrupts me. After a moment of hesitation, she agreed. At 3 p.m. I sat in the open living area of the villa, laptop placed on the white wooden table. I wore a comfortable linen dress, my hair tied up neatly, and positioned the camera so the brilliant blue ocean filled the background behind me. The Zoom screen lit up, faces gradually appearing. Mom sat in a side conference room at the sister resort, flanked by Ethan, the company attorney, and two senior assistants. Ethan was furiously typing on his laptop, visibly tense. Madison, Mom began, we need to have a serious conversation. I'm listening, I nodded. Your unauthorized leave has caused chaos. Partners haven't received files, employees are confused. And your presence here as an independent investor is entirely inappropriate. I didn't quit. I took a leave. And I notified you by email. Very clearly. We're family, Madison. I looked straight into the screen. And what does family mean, Mom? People who only remember you when there's a contract to sign? When someone else needs their mess cleaned up? Ethan jumped in. All right, enough with the emotional stuff. You're holding essential financial documents. Just give me the password. We need it now. I leaned back in my chair. Have you tried March 12th? Ethan frowned. That's Mom and Dad's anniversary. How about June 18th? That's the company's founding date, Mom answered quickly. What about April 25th? The entire room fell silent. I let the silence stretch a few seconds. That's my birthday, I said calmly. The one all of you forget every year. And today it's the key. Ethan looked down at his keyboard and started typing. His expression changed. It worked, he muttered. It's real. I looked at Mom. She didn't say a word, just clasped her hands tightly in front of her, unreadable. I didn't leave quietly, Mom, I said. I planned this. And this time I'm not cleaning up anyone else's mess. If someone wants to keep something, they're going to have to learn how to hold on to it themselves. I ended the call, shut the laptop, unplugged the earbuds, and turned toward the sea. Outside, the water had shifted to a jade green, the sky clear. Marcus appeared beside me with a tray of pastries and tea. Looks like the meeting went just how you wanted it to. I nodded. Almost. He set the tray down, then asked, should I pass along any message to the other resort? I smiled lightly. Just remind them, if they want access to this side, they'll need an invitation. That evening, I rejoined the Zoom meeting at Mom's request. But this time not as an employee on the edge of a meltdown. This time with full documentation and weeks of prepared data. No ocean view behind me. No soft wind or cocktails in hand. I chose to sit in front of a plain white wall in the resort's private boardroom, the Coastal Azure logo faintly engraved on the wood-paneled background. The lighting was precise, casting just enough brightness to make every expression clear and impossible to ignore. Mom, Ethan, and 2 board members from Taylor Company were already there, their eyes tight with tension. I didn't wait for anyone to begin. I won't waste time, I said, voice steady and firm. This is the pay discrepancy report between myself and Ethan over the past 4 years. I shared my screen. The spreadsheet appeared with columns for year, title, responsibilities, and actual compensation. The red highlights marked periods when I worked overtime, managed additional projects, while Ethan was repeatedly absent for startups. He's the only son, Mom said softly. He has succession rights. And I'm the one who kept the company from collapsing when Ethan lost the Pacific One deal. I'm the one who renegotiated with the bank during the Napa Valley land issue. But you don't remember that, do you? Kept my eyes steady. And here's the list of personal funds I lent to the company as internal advances, none of which have ever been reimbursed. I clicked to the next sheet. The advance list appeared, from partner event costs to emergency flights for Ethan when he forgot client meetings in Seattle. The total exceeded $160,000. Not a single repayment noted. Some of those were voluntary. Mom said, her voice weakening. Voluntary doesn't mean expected by default, I replied. And finally, here's the asset report. Gifts from the family. Or more accurately, items I was pressured to accept, then sold to fund this trip. I opened a photo slide. A Cartier bracelet Mom gifted to me after borrowing it for a client gala, returned with a broken clasp. A designer dress from Ethan for my birthday, 2 sizes too small, tag still on. A vintage watch from Dad, the only gift that ever meant something, sold for $3,000. Each item displayed clearly with photos and receipts. I'm not saying these things had no monetary value, I said slowly. They did. And thanks to them I'm here, free, independent, and finally heard as a person. Ethan leaned toward the camera. You did all of this because we forgot your birthday? I looked directly at him. No. I did all of this because I've had enough. Enough of being dismissed. Enough of being overlooked. And because I realized I don't owe anyone in that room my silence anymore. I picked up an envelope, opened it, and held up a document to the screen. This is my official resignation from Taylor Company. I've sent a copy to legal. It becomes effective at 6 p.m. today. Mom's eyes widened, ready to speak, but I continued. Additionally, I've accepted a formal offer from Coastal Azure to become their Associate Chief Financial Officer. The role begins next week. I'll be overseeing capital restructuring and sustainable growth initiatives for the entire chain. No one spoke for several seconds. I stayed still, letting the impact settle across the screen. Mom's hands clenched on the table. Ethan leaned back in his chair, lips pressed tight. One board member, Raymond, who'd often walked past me like I was an admin assistant, sat up straight. You actually went through with it? He asked. Yes. I did. Not out of emotion. Out of deliberate planning. I don't want to destroy Taylor Company. I just don't want to be the one cleaning up after everyone else anymore. Mom looked at me, her expression a mix of shock and pain. She tried to hold her voice steady. Madison, if you feel unrecognized, I can make it right. I nodded softly. You can, Mom. But I no longer have time to wait. I've already lost 10 years. Now it's time I live my own life. The screen fell silent. Not the kind of silence born from anger, but the kind that comes with realizing something has changed, and will never go back to the way it was. I didn't smile. I didn't cry. I just felt like I could finally breathe. I was sitting in my new office at Coastal Azure's executive wing, an open space with glass walls facing the shoreline, where gentle waves tapped against the rocks like a reminder that even the biggest decisions require stillness to begin. The desk still smelled like fresh wood. The computer was already set up. Marcus walked in with a cup of green tea and a small, sealed envelope with handwriting on the front. From April. Open when alone. I lifted the tea, sat down, and opened the envelope. Inside was a small USB drive and a folded note written in April's quick, sharp pen strokes. Recordings of internal meetings from the last 3 months, covering gender bias, hiring favoritism, and pressure to stay silent. Send it where it belongs at the right time. Always with you. I held the USB in my hand, my chest suddenly heavy. What I'd lived through the past 10 years now sat in my palm as evidence. Not just feelings anymore. Not invisible cuts on the inside, but audible, documented truth. Names, voices, context. At that moment, my phone buzzed. A text from Violet. The Labor Department's formal report has been approved. They've officially opened an investigation into Taylor Company for suspected labor violations. And the best part, the lead investigator is Susan Rivera. I shot upright. Susan. The name wasn't just familiar because she was a seasoned federal agent. I'd met her at this very resort 3 years ago, back when I was fixing a budget disaster Ethan had created during a high-level client conference. She was the only one who had looked at me and asked, "Have you ever had a real break?" I didn't know if Susan remembered me, but I'd never forgotten that look. One from someone who knew what it felt like to live in spaces no one ever saw. Later that afternoon, while I was preparing documents for my first strategic meeting with Reese, Marcus entered with an odd expression, like he had just seen something he hadn't expected. "Miss Madison, you'll want to see this." I followed him down to the resort's main lobby. Through the glass, I saw my mother standing in the center, dressed in an ivory linen dress, hair neatly combed, phone in hand, expression as icy as ever. But standing opposite her was a woman in a black suit, a federal badge clipped to her blazer with the seal of the U.S. Department of Labor. I recognized her immediately, Susan Rivera. I stayed behind a wooden partition, not stepping in, just observing. Susan pulled a file folder from her bag and held it out. "Mrs. Carolyn Taylor, under federal authority, I am officially serving you with notice of a formal administrative investigation regarding Taylor Company for suspected discriminatory practices, wage transparency violations, and misuse of family influence within the organization." My mother stood motionless for a few seconds. Then she offered a dry smile, extending her hand as if accepting a dinner invitation. "There must be some mistake. Taylor Company has been a reputable family business for over 30 years. We've passed every federal audit clean." Susan didn't flinch. She nodded once, evenly. "We are in possession of internal recordings provided by employees, salary comparison reports, and a formal complaint filed by a former employee, Violet Rowe, who was terminated after questioning biased hiring policies. The investigation has been approved by the Oversight Committee. Starting today, you and the Executive Board are required to cooperate fully." My mother glanced toward the reception desk, then her eyes locked on mine, me standing there, silent, unblinking. She didn't say my name, didn't speak a word. But in that moment, I knew she understood. I was no longer the daughter who nodded and obeyed without a voice. Susan turned and saw me. She offered a gentle smile. "Madison Taylor," she said warmly. "I take it you finally got that rest you needed?" I stepped forward and shook her hand. "And I take it we're about to have a very interesting reunion." Susan nodded. "Very interesting. Congratulations on the new role. And thank you for speaking the truth even when no one believed you at first." I looked back at my mother, now standing alone in the elegant lobby, file folder in hand, eyes searching into a space where power could no longer protect her. That night, I hosted dinner right on the sand, under soft golden string lights draped between palm trees. A long linen-covered table with simple but elegant centerpieces. The sound of waves gently breaking behind us, the scent of grilled wood and fresh lemon drifting through the air. Reese sat on my left, April across from me, and the resort's senior leadership gathered around, talking cheerfully about the upcoming wellness retreat expansion on the Eastern Cape. I raised my glass, not to make a speech, just to smile. Thank you for being here. Not because of blood, not because of title, just because we trust each other and want to do what's right. April clinked her glass against mine. You don't need blood ties to feel warmth at dinner. Reese chuckled. Exactly. I've been to a lot of corporate banquets, but none that made me feel like I belonged, until now. We dined with soft jazz playing from speakers tucked in the leaves above. I felt the real kind of ease slip into my movements. No judging eyes. No roles to play. Just me being me. As dessert was served, my phone vibrated. Ethan's name lit up on the screen. I nearly silenced it, but something inside nudged me to answer. The voice on the other end wasn't angry for once. It was trembling. Madison, his voice cracked. You're not family anymore. I lifted the phone to my ear and walked along the water's edge. The moon shimmered on the waves, blinking like little lights guiding me through memory. You're right, I said quietly. Because family isn't a place where someone feels invisible in their own life. Ethan didn't say anything else. I heard a quiet sniff before the call ended. I wasn't angry. I wasn't sad. It felt like a strong wind had swept through me, carrying away something that had weighed on my chest for years. When I returned to the table, Marcus had placed a tablet beside my wine glass. New internal bulletin just went out, he said softly. Thought you might want to see it. I turned on the screen. It was an announcement from the Business Oversight Commission. Taylor Company has been officially suspended pending an internal investigation for serious labor and financial violations. I wasn't surprised. I just saw it as a headline that had arrived 10 years late, but still in time for someone to finally face the truth. April leaned in beside me. You okay? I nodded. More than ever. Before I left the table, I picked up my glass of wine and quietly pulled 2 hand-printed invitations from my bag. The names were written in bold black ink on natural fiber paper. Susan Rivera and Violet Rowe. I sent a digital copy via email with a short note. Coastal Azure's new investment center officially opens this Friday. I hope to see you both there. Because any place built on courage and honesty deserves the presence of those who chose to stand for truth. April watched as I hit send. You just did what none of them ever had the courage to do, she said. I smiled gently. I don't need their recognition anymore. I just need to know I didn't choose silence. The candlelight flickered in the night. The waves kept lapping gently at the shore. I was sitting among a new kind of family, one that didn't ask me what I had to do to be loved, but simply wanted me to be myself. That morning, I woke up earlier than usual. Not because of work pressure or some urgent email waiting, but because I felt more at peace than I ever had. Sunlight slipped softly through the curtains, and the sound of waves rolling against the shore reminded me gently that life keeps going, no matter how stormy yesterday was. I stepped out onto the balcony, took a deep breath, then went back in to change into the ivory suit I had set out the night before. On my wrist, the old graduation watch from my father was no longer there. It had been sold to begin this new life. In its place, I wore a slim bracelet custom-made by April, engraved with the words, "You belong where you are valued." The grand meeting room doors of the executive center opened. I walked in, not as the backstage employee anymore, but as the official investment director of the entire Coastal Azure chain. Reese rose from the head of the table, contract in hand, his expression both formal and warm. We've been waiting for this moment for quite a while, he said. Madison, congratulations. Starting today, the financial growth strategy of the entire chain is in your hands. I accepted the documents, feeling the weight of each page. Not just numbers, but trust. No one asked if I was sure. No one told me not to let emotions cloud my judgment. They looked at me like a capable woman who had earned the right to decide. Not through bloodline, not by gender, not because of age. April sat at the corner of the table, secretly giving me a thumbs up as I signed the final page. She had just been officially promoted to lead the Green Finance Development team. Violet, after accepting my invitation, took on the role of Internal Compliance Officer, her first task being to establish a transparent salary and bonus framework across the entire system. The meeting lasted 2 hours, but not a single minute felt isolating. Every strategy one proposed was heard. Every response I received was direct, professional, and free from bias. Afterward, Reese came over holding 2 espresso cups. One for you, one for me. Looks like we both picked the right person. I tapped his cup with mine. And at the right time. After the meeting, I returned to the villa, where Marcus had prepared breakfast out on the patio. Walnut butter toast, soft-boiled eggs, and a glass of watermelon juice with a few mint leaves. I took out my phone, set up the remote camera, and snapped a photo of myself sitting at a simple but full breakfast table, with the brilliant blue ocean behind me. I posted the photo on my private social media with a simple caption. Family isn't blood. It's who shows up when you need them. The first comment was from April, and we showed up at the right time. Violet sent a sunshine emoji. Susan messaged privately, if there's a birthday party next year, I'll bring red wine. I smiled, leaned back in the chair, propped my feet up on the wooden railing, and closed my eyes for a moment, not to sleep but to remember this feeling. The feeling of living true to my values, of being heard and no longer having to strain to prove anything. A video call came through from the executive office. Reese wanted me to pick the official launch date for the expanded investment center. I said, April 25th. He raised an eyebrow then nodded. Your birthday. I want, for the first time in my life, to have a birthday that's not forgotten, and not just another forced family dinner. We'll do more than that, he said. Fireworks, live music, a cake twice the usual size. I laughed. Just make sure everyone's there. He replied, firm and clear, the family will be there. A real one. I ended the call and looked out at the ocean. The waves still rolled gently toward the shore as they always had. But now I didn't feel like I was drifting in them anymore. I had anchored myself where I belonged. And no one could take that from me again. I don't know what family means to you. For me, for many years, it was a place I worked tirelessly to be acknowledged, only to receive silence, forgetfulness, and at times even dismissal. But now I understand, family doesn't have to be those you share blood with. Sometimes, it's the people who choose to stand beside you. No conditions, no agenda, no demands. Just because they believe you deserve to be seen, heard, and valued. What about you? Have you ever felt forgotten in your own home? Have you ever had to overperform just to be considered worthy? If you have, I hope you'll share your thoughts in the comments. I truly want to hear from you, because while this may be my story, I believe in some way it might also be part of yours. If what I shared resonated with you, please follow the channel to continue walking with me through stories about family, choice, forgiveness, and sometimes unexpected beginnings. Thank you for listening all the way through. And if you're standing at the edge of change, I hope my story helps you believe this. You deserve a place where love doesn't require you to earn it.